Hey everyone, Jess Barney here. Welcome back to the Barney Homestead. I am about to start working on direct sowing my beets and carrots, and also transplanting out some of my onion starts that I started from seed, and also some of the onion starts that I purchased from the store. So I figured I would take you along with me and show you how I am doing each of those in one of my garden beds. I just put the row cover on the garden bed. You can see it right behind me there. So these are all going to go right underneath. So here is what I'm going to be planting into that bed. I have some of my beet seeds here. I've got a bunch of my carrot seeds. I purchased these onion kind of bulb starts from the store, red onions. And then these are Walla Walla onions that I have grown from seed, and they are ready to go in the garden too. So I've flipped my row cover back, and I am just going to work this soil a little bit with my soil tool, and I'm just going to go along and start to loosen up this top layer of soil. The reason you want to do this, at least for me, these are some new raised beds for me that I have just put new soil in, and we have gotten a ton of rain, so the surface is a little bit compacted. So I just want to make sure that I am breaking up the surface tension on the soil, especially for root crops like beets and carrots. You want to make sure you have light, loose soil to plant right into. You just want to go a few inches deep. You don't need to disturb too far down. You definitely don't want to disturb too far down. You're going to compromise the structure and integrity of your soil. But just those first couple inches you want to make sure are light and loose. All right, so I am going to start with my red onion sets first. And these are the type of onion starts that I grew from last year, and I had a ton of success. I did not have success starting my onions from seed last year. I had some better success this year, but we'll see what happens once they get in the ground. You can buy these. I found them at just my local kind of hardware garden store center. You can get them online too, but they are essentially a bulb that's kind of already started, and you'll see that there's kind of like a drier piece towards the top, and then the bottom, you can see it clearly is kind of like what looks like the bottom root. So you're just going to plant it up and right until the top, or right into your soil like that. You don't need to worry about the top breaking it off or anything. You're just going to put it right into the soil. You can see this one already has a little bit of a sprout on it. Again, totally fine. You're just going to plant it until right up until that top part of the onion, right up until the crown there. And you're going to space them about every 4 to 6 inches, depending on how big you want your onion bulbs to get. But I usually do about every 4 inches or so. So I've got a couple in here. I've got my first one here, second one here, third one here. And again, all you're gonna do, this is the top, this is the bottom where you can see the little bit of roots. You're simply just going to find your spot in the soil and place it right until the top part of that onion start, cover the soil around it, and you're good to go. Couldn't be any easier. So the next thing I am going to plant are my Walla Walla onions that I started from seed indoors, and I started them in a big pot like this, and I am simply going to take this out of the pot and start to gently tease them apart into their individual onion plants. So this is what it looks like out of the pot, and I'm just going to start to break this apart gently. So out of this first clump, I've got 1, 2, and you can see the roots are nice and intact, and a third one there. And so I'm simply going to make a space for these, just bury them up to their root, and plant them just like I did the red ones, except these are gonna have a lot more green coming out of the top already. So again, just gonna make a little hole, make sure all the roots get under, and then I'm just gonna leave that green part coming out of the top. gonna go a few more inches. Make sure all those roots are under. Just plant it right there. Third one, right down. And I'm just gonna keep going all the way along my bed until I've got all those taken care of. All right, so the next one that I'm gonna work on sowing are the carrots. And again, this is how I prep the space to sow carrots. So it's probably gonna be kind of hard to see, but I essentially take my hori-hori knife, which has a little bit of a bevel to it, so it kind of goes down. And what I do is I simply create these teeny tiny small trenches across the bed. They are spaced, if I use my hori-hori knife, they are spaced about 5 inches apart, which is perfectly fine for carrots. And so I've got 5 separate trenches. I've got 5 different carrot types. And so I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle the seeds into these trenches. I'm gonna be honest, it is so incredibly windy today. This is not the ideal time to be sowing carrots, but I'm gonna do it anyways, and I'm gonna do it quickly. So when you sow carrots, you can gently kind of just sprinkle them into your trenches. You don't need to worry too much about making sure that the seeds are individually spaced. You can always thin them once they sprout. I don't thin my carrots a ton. I do sow them, I don't want to say individually, but I'm not worried if they're super close together. Because I've got 5 inches of space between my rows, it's going to give them a little bit of room on each side. If you plant your carrots rows really close together, then you may want to thin them a little bit more once they sprout, just so you can make sure that a really nice root develops. But that is what I'm going to do with carrot seeds. They're super, super small, so all you really want to do is surface sow them. That simply means you're going to sprinkle them on top of the surface of the soil, gently brush just a minimal amount of soil back on top, and then water them in. Carrots are also one of the crops, one of the reasons why I use row covers, because you don't want the seeds disturbed. I use a row cover because I find that it prevents rain from directly impacting the soil, which can disrupt the seeds and also create kind of, water swells in your soil so that your seeds move. And it also prevents things like wind from just basically blowing your seeds away once you sow them. And because they're sown so close to the surface, carrot seeds you really want to make sure stay moist. So I find with a row cover, again, it protects from the wind a little bit, which prevents a little bit more evaporation from wind, but also from the sun too. So I'm going to go ahead and sow these carrot seeds. So all I'm going to do with my seeds is simply take them and gently sprinkle them into my trench, a seed every few inches. I'm going to go all the way down, and then I'm just going to gently, like barely, cover with soil, and you're good to go. Now for beets, I do what's called multi-sowing. So every beet seed has 2 to 3 to 4 seeds inside it. And so you're already kind of multi-sowing when you sow one seed, but I usually put 2 or 3 seeds together, and I don't worry about thinning them. I give them enough space so as they grow, they're going to push out from the center of each other and develop a full bulb. And as I harvest, I just harvest the smaller ones first. The larger ones first, which will give room for the smaller ones to catch up. So for beets, I make individual holes that are spaced, again, about every 4 inches or so. And I'm going to sow 2 to 3 beet seeds in each one of these holes throughout this space. And then again, lightly cover with soil. So I've got my beet seeds here, and as I said, I'm going to take 2 or 3 beet seeds into each hole and just lightly cover with soil. So I'm going to go ahead and do all these rows. All right, everyone, we did it. The first garden bed of 2022 is officially planted at the Barney homestead. I planted 28 Walla Walla yellow onions. I planted 28 red onions. I planted 5 rows of carrots and 4 rows of beets. So that is what is in this 4x8 bed. Thanks so much for hanging out with me in the garden today. Please subscribe before you leave, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.